Welcome to India, Steve, and I'm very happy to host you in the first leadership talk that we're having within 𝗙𝗲𝗣𝗟𝗡. And just welcome you to India once again, and hope you have had some fun time in the week that you have been here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm super delighted to be here with yourself today and the team, and it's been a great trip. I'm so happy to come out. It's not been my first trip, and this one's a very special one, even though it's not my first trip. So I appreciate you having me here and speaking today about RCS.
Yeah, I think RCS has been there since the time I have become gray, and you maybe lost a bit here and there.
Yeah.
But it's been there for a long time, almost 15 years when it came first in GSMA.
Yep.
So take us through that journey and tell us how you see it coming forward, because it's really the talk of the town these days.
Yeah, no, it's been it's like 2023 has been the year of RCS. Let's roll back to 2007. GSMA announced this thing called RCS.
Correct.
I think they called it Join back then. Walk around the village in Mobile World Congress, and everyone's kind of like, what is this?
What is it?
It never really kind of quite took off. A lot of the problems at that point were everyone had a different definition of what it was from a spec perspective. The back-end servers were all different, handsets were different. Go from 2007 to 2015, Google felt we need to invest in a communication suite. Android needs this to be a complete product, but we're not just going to do a chat app. We're going to upgrade carrier messaging for the world on Android, and so we bought 𝗙𝗢𝗡𝗡𝗧. And then in 2015, 2017, we then did the open beta on RBM. And then since then, you have all these announcements here of 1 billion users, Apple joining RCS, and really a lot of markets now starting to take off on usage. So it's been a long journey. Some of the hardest things that people I've worked with said they've ever done in their life, but also, the things that a value look back on are usually the hardest ones. So.
Yeah, our trials with RCS has been there, very, very known within the Google ecosystem, right? We were one of the first guys to hit 1 billion traffic, and thereafter you guys shut it off there, obviously, because there were privacy concerns and so on and so forth. So how different is now RCS from that avatar, right? How do you really bring this whole element of communication with permission or communication at the right time, in the right context? So how have you really evolved it on that front?
Yeah, I mean,
so that we don't repeat the same mistakes that we did before, right?
If you organize the world's information and make it universally accessible, privacy has to be at the heart of that.
Correct.
And while we're part of Google operates with almost a collection of startups, if you think about it. So
I like that
hacky
word,
mentality.
Collection of startups.
Yeah, and so in that, there were some things that we had some issues on user control of messages. So we wanted to fix that and then re-roll it out this year. And you'll see on all messages that you receive from a business, front and center, there's a button that says, is this a message that I did not request? Do I want to block it? Is it inappropriate and all that? So the user has full control to signal that the message was not relevant. So it also makes the experience better because no one wants to have that button pushed on them if they're a business in that sense.
True.
So I think that's one thing that's different. Another thing different is the reach in India is starting to become mass market, where you can say one of something. That's the second number is a very small number in that sense, not a large number. And you're able to say a very large proportion of users in India are getting the service. And the other thing is, if you go to most stores in India today and you look at a Samsung store or other stores where they're selling Androids, go and look at the messaging app that comes on the phone.
It's native
Google Messages. And so with that, all new phones being sold now have this technology. Google Messages equal RCS, meaning all users have the ability to get rich messaging. And so this is something that's growing. That's different than last year, where now the reach is even bigger. The user has even more controls, and everyone's focused on having good experience.
So I think in a way that stop was better, because perhaps you were able to organize the ecosystem better, and now you're much better prepared at the handset penetration level with the apps, and then now you can push use cases.
And we all know what we can lose if we don't police this ourselves together.
True. Yeah. True. When you look at the use cases, how have you seen the adoption of use cases? Because you work globally, and obviously whatever we are going to talk will be heard and listened to and can double listen to across our channels and perhaps hopefully yours too, all over the world.
Yeah.
So what are the kind of use cases that you're seeing after the re-entry back of?
I mean, we've got many large markets like India all at the same time booming in usage, hockey stick usage.
Absolute hockey stick. Yeah.
And it's astounding. I could talk about use cases like people selling high-end Porsche SUVs over messaging with RBM and test drives
First
and
time,
follows.
new Porsche.
New Porsches, all $100,000 units. So conversion on that is very important. But what I talk about is almost like using the analogy of like 𝗙𝗫𝗡𝗧, from like needles to airplanes in all areas, all parts of the economy. I would say RBM's the same way. RCS Business Messages are, people are using it for simple notifications, to selling Porsches, to boarding passes for subway and bus and airlines, to other moments of engagement and marketing with users. So it's something that hopefully becomes a toothbrush moment for people as they go around their daily life and engage with businesses.
I like that word, toothbrush moment. I'm going to use that quite often when I talk about it. It's
𝗪𝗬𝗖𝗓𝗍's favorite expression.
I know. Yeah. Anything specific that comes out of your mind when you talk of a use case? You could tell us in any of the 2-3 of them, which is that you could tell us something which is more sales or kind of marketing sales centric, anything on the engagement centric, or anything on the customer support that comes to your mind, like off the bull, which says, this one case study was really a benchmark globally.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few ones that I think are first that are kind of interesting, the boarding passes. So we announced Vietnam Airlines. I think that's interesting. Some work that we have with yourselves in that same vein as well. And transportation, I think, is great. But I wouldn't stop there. There are really a lot of I almost can't keep up with all these different brands coming online. So Nespresso in France, or various banks in Latin America, to all the great experiences here in India. It's hard to pick out any, and honestly, I'm more and more surprised by the creativity of the different partners and their brands and how they look at using messaging.
Fantastic. This brings me to the market and the use case kind of a mix together, right? Europe has been there commercially alive for quite some time, right? And some of the developing markets, like whether it's in LATAM or Southeast Asia, is like either getting the pricing right, or just the operators are just bringing you guys on board, or it's just start getting commercially available, right? How do you see the differences between the two, right? How do you see the different developed market where it has been there for quite some time versus a developing market like maybe India, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Indonesia? How do you see, or I don't know if Nigeria or South Africa, how do you really see the difference in the uptake there?
Yeah, I would kind of go back to the concept of paradigms.
Yeah.
So before the internet, the way you interacted with the business vice versa was the phone call. Then you had the web page. Then you had the mobile web page.
Correct.
And then you had apps. And now, if we fast forward 10 years and look backwards, we might be standing in that next paradigm of messaging. True. And so, like work that we're doing, others in this field are doing as well, what you've been doing for many years, are kind of creating this new paradigm. And I think that's something that's quite interesting, that I see this in the developing world a lot, because they may have leapfrogged from the app phase or the mobile web straight into where they don't even invest in a website.
Absolutely.
Or it's just, no one's going to use it.
Digital first brands, right?
So you see that in like the Vietnams, the Brazils.
Even India.
Even in India. The digital channels are different. Like in Greece is different than Vietnam, than India, than Brazil on preference of channels. But what you do see is people having more and more of a relationship from a commerce perspective over messaging. Not email. It is through messaging that commerce is starting to happen. Whether or not we're pushing this, it is just happening.
It is there happening.
We're being pulled through versus us pushing right now.
Very, 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 very interesting. You mentioned Vietnam, and that brings me to another context, right? Which is to say, when you go these markets, right, not only language is a restriction or a constraint or a barrier, handset is another huge part, right? I did remember that you did mention that in India, when you go to a Samsung store, it perhaps comes natively within the latest Android devices of Samsung. But in general, how have you now cracked the handset element of ensuring that almost every new handset on Android would be with Google Messages? Is that a solved problem, or you feel it's still evolving, or some series still don't have the Google Messaging natively been there?
Yeah, so I would look at, again, like back in like 2015 when we were trying to solve for RCS, is again, you had different specifications, you had different servers in the background managing the traffic, and you had different front-end clients.
Okay.
It was no way to build a scalable business where you could do billions of messages on a daily basis.
And perhaps not even a horizontal uniform spec then.
Yeah, so work was done to fix the spec. We bought 𝗙𝗢𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗧, and with the carriers from GSMA, built that to be a universal platform on the back end with the scale to manage that. And then on the front end, working with the various OEMs, people that make the phones for Android around the world, and the carriers, built a universal client solution called Google Messages.
Okay.
That allows us in the mean, every Android phone has Google Messages, every Google Messages has RCS, and that means every user can now get rich messaging.
Fantastic. So the OEM, handset OEM industry is kind of a solved problem, and it's just about now rollout, and there is an automatic organic growth that would happen on the availability, or what we call as RCS capable handset. So
exactly. Right? And this is a slow path.
Okay.
There could be ways that we could have gone faster, but we did it. We chose to do the hard path with the carriers and the OEMs and partners, because that's the more foundation that this is still very much a native service within phones and with the phone operators around the world and with the governments around the world that also regulate the service as well. So it was born into that in that sense.
That whole sense.
So it has the capabilities of rich media and rich messaging, but it's part of a service that banks can be comfortable using, and governments and things of that nature there, that a lot of other options don't exist.
Correct. So on one side you have the handset OEMs, other side you have operators, right? Whose support and whose connectivity and reach and pricing and all of that becomes extremely crucial. Help us unveil or peel the orange there in terms of saying, how has that developed globally? Because I can see some markets you're commercially live, in other markets you're still evolving. Like I don't see you guys very much active in, say, Middle East Africa in large parts of market, right? In other markets like Indonesia also, you're just kind of emerging there, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's other solutions where they're universally on everywhere, but you can't use it for bank transactions, you can't use it for certain government ones. Other things with that. The slower path requires us to focus on markets and to grow out in that sense. And so that's what we've been doing. There's 900 operators in the world, probably 20 or 30 OEMs in the world, 200 countries. So it's kind of like picking those Pareto moments. Like, okay, these countries are the 20% of countries that represent 80% of Android users. If you don't have success here, you won't have success out there. So building these rights, and then the learnings from these markets, like this is new. We are, building the science as like we're making the science as we're doing this, and so learning. Okay, this works well in this market. Let's bring it over here. That works well in that market there, and that in time will grow out to all markets. But it's the slower path, it's harder to do that all at one time. So
if I may ask, and if that is publicly available information, which becomes your priority markets right now, or is this an off the comment conversation?
Well, absolutely India. I'm here this week.
I think that is more attributable to the chicken tikka masala and not necessarily the market, I'm sure.
Exactly, and the breakfast too.
Okay. No, but coming back, in the sense, is there a priority market that you would want to kind of throw up, or you think that's more an off the point conversation, right?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't focus on kind of haves and have-not market-wise. Like there are markets that have a large population. There are markets that we've been able to get coherence in terms of everyone is aligned, everyone is ready, everyone's pricing, everyone's making it accessible. The 4 P's of marketing in that sense. Let's go. And then with that, then those become lighthouses for the other markets in those particular regions to then follow that model and then roll as well.
So let me rephrase, and I'm not going to leave you out of that, but let me then rephrase that question. I assume that you around here, as a global boss of RCS in the world, I assume that India for sure is in the top markets that you would consider, right?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
That's one.
There's no success without India.
Thank you very much. I come back to the handset part because I missed that point when I was thinking of it. It came back to my mind as a flash, right?
Yeah.
We missed talking about Apple,
Yes.
right? So that's a great news and congratulations for the holy grail of high-end devices and Apple for itself is a strong partner to have.
Yep.
Give us a bit of a peek into it in whatever way you can.
You know, the day it was announced, we knew in advance. We announced it there were only a few people that knew. Internally.
Yeah.
They then announced to the wider group, and there was kind of a moment of, are you serious?
Serious.
And it's like, wow. And then it's like, it sets in and you're like, that means pretty much every phone
In the world.
now has this. Like the magic is now in every phone. I mean, if you have a feature phone, no, but in time those are all disappearing.
True.
And then now, like I talk about that paradigm shift is there. And so as much as like in certain markets, Apple isn't big, other markets it is, but it was a missing piece that.
True.
We built this again, not hopefully as a Google only, like as an industry solution for OEMs, carriers, companies like yourselves. Businesses are going to use this and that's why we go through and do all the work on universal profile and so forth, so that somebody like Apple could come on and join as well, and then that completes the.
I personally think it's a great win. For 2-3 things, because we have always worked in these solutions and we've always said if there is an Apple phone which does a URL, then pass it to another OTT channel, and then we've always been doing those designing fallbacks in our chat journeys and URL journeys. But I think this is a great win and absolute congratulations, and I'm looking forward to doing betas on whenever that is getting easy. So my obvious next question was, will you replace Apple Business Message? But I will leave it for that till the time I catch you next.
That's a question for Apple.
That's a question for Apple.
But
okay.
I think it's great. You go back, like people using this are businesses and actual consumers.
True.
Having an experience that works on all phones and having for a business is super important.
Great.
Mass reach, and for a user having an experience that like they can trust, they know the identity. They trust their information is safe. All these things allows in the magic of commerce to happen over this new medium.
Right.
Kind of like people didn't trust websites at the very beginning.
True.
And then over time now, I mean, everything we do is digital. But there was a time where you're like, I'm not going to put my credit card on a website.
Right.
It'd be crazy. Now it's normal.
So good. So we have kind of solved the OEM handset problem. We have by and large clear about how do we solve the operator partnership problem. Partners like us, sales CPaaS partners for you. I think you have some relationships strong. So I think that's also by and large a solved piece. But the fourth one, which is very big, is both consumer education as well as brand education, right?
Yes.
Because other OTT channels are famous. It's on the tip of the tongue, right?
Yes.
And they are more like Xerox moments, right? People don't say photocopy, they say give me a Xerox, right?
Yeah.
So people don't say send me XYZ, they say send XYZ, right? And, and you know the brands that are tip of the tongue, right? How do you really ensure that RBM becomes market aware, becomes top of mind for the CMOs, and what do you think needs to be really done as Google, as operator, and us, and what can we do on that front?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd like to see a world where like RCS is like oxygen. You take it for granted, it's everywhere.
Okay.
And as much as we can market that, people don't have to download this on their phone. They buy their phone, it's like a browser. It's like all the apps, it's there. Like the phone connects to the network and they will make phone calls. Messaging is necessary. If they want to use another messaging app, they can download that or ride share, but like this is native to that experience.
Okay.
I think like how Google kind of comes at marketing a lot of time is Google doesn't do a lot of its own marketing. For the size of the company, it rarely markets a lot of its products. It lets its products market themselves. So if the products don't drive adoption virally, then that's a signal. And so I think like with like yourselves and ourselves is creating great use cases, virally sharing that with others in the industry, with other brands, and over time the user will start to realize it's becoming a toothbrush moment without them realizing that. And the same thing with you don't see Apple advertising iMessage, and that became a viral thing for them as well. I think that this is possible with just doing great work, aiming at good use cases that stand out, and then through your network, my network, really getting the word out. And in time, there may be marketing moments or press moments that start to grow out of that, like what happened with the recent Apple announcement or our 1 billion users announcement.
Sure.
So,
and I'm sure when the messaging app becomes native, your messaging app for P2P also should automatically improve, because it will bring the necessary stickiness.
Yep.
Right. So I assume you would have the iMessage equivalent within that.
And that exists today.
That exists today, right?
That exists today, and when we
so that interaction between P2P is already very enriched.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And as we made our announcement of the 1 billion users on RCS, I think like a week or two, we also launched a whole bunch of new features.
True.
And there will be more and more features that are coming out now that are going to be pretty amazing, with maybe generative AI and other rich features. And so with that, it just becomes a more useful medium for users to use. And you may see people start to experiment with other messaging channels.
Absolutely. When you really see any new product, and I think you have been able to find a great spot to be positioned better than SMS, which is one of the most prevalent channels since the time the mobile phone came in, and established so-called high market share OTTs in relevant markets. Right? In Indonesia, you would have somebody else. In India, you might have somebody else. In Thailand, you might have somebody else. In Brazil and Korea, you might have somebody else.
You already know all those markets. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So now, you have each of a different OTT which kinds of commands it, right? So I think from a pricing perspective, right, how do you really believe you are evolving, and where do you think the right sweet spot is emerging? Do you have any learnings of other markets to kind of talk about?
Yeah, so what we've spent time on with pricing is set by the operators in the market, like SMS and other services, and spent time with them on sharing what we've seen as best practice of the markets that have kick-started adoption. When I say adoption of the biggest banks, airlines, retailers, all using this service to engage with their users and turn it into a canvas that is an engagement canvas, a marketing canvas, and a canvas in which to be hopefully a close tie with those consumers in that sense.
True.
And so those, again, almost come down to the 4 P's of marketing. And it's like, why, if you're a brand, why would you try something new if it's not kind of cost neutral or easy to do? So we've worked with carriers to try to get the pricing such that RBM Basics on peer pricing, paired pricing with RBM Basics. RBM Basic SMS equal the same. That makes it easy for A/B tests and things like that. And then carriers then in those markets will then look at like the cost of a single message, which is improved functionality, and then conversational. And if priced right, the cycle starts to take off. We have reach now in these markets and such it's becoming, or is already mass market in that sense. And you then have generative AI taking off, which then allows experiences to really be immediate, personalized, and automated at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very scared of, honestly, as a professional, at times I get very scared of what all generative AI will take out of us. We just don't know, right? So we're really looking forward to seeing how do we really integrate an RCS with the generative AI to that effect.
I have a comment on that.
Okay.
So people are afraid of it. I wonder if people were afraid of the personal computer, the computer in the 1950s and 60s.
Yeah.
And out of I read a book recently about kind of like the hacky culture in the Bay in Silicon Valley, where they were like where Steve Jobs and all them came out of. And there was an expression that was used at the time of a computer is the bicycle for the mind. So like a bicycle, it's an instrument that allows you to move faster with less energy and get more done. And so as like computers get better or generative AI, it's almost, I look at it as almost a bicycle for the mind of like, if you need to write a contract, you might ask it to help you draft a contract or pitch. Ultimately, you're choosing what you're doing, but it's helping you be more efficient.
More efficient, yeah. And I know because Silicon Valley has a lot of that great stuff which comes out. Even the word venture capital actually came as adventure capital, right? Which is money to be given for some adventure, which was then not to be done, and then it eventually became a very popular thing as we see. 𝗬𝗓𝗪𝗘𝗧𝗧 has been your partner for quite some time. Both you have been also buying services from us and also been now partner with us in RCS.
Long history.
Long history. Any words of advice? Any words of kindness? Any words of critique for us?
None of critique.
I would love to. You would learn from any critique too.
All of kindness. It's great to be in journeys like this with friends.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that we are your friends.
And we're here to learn from you as well. So where you see where we should go next, we want to do that. We don't have all the answers, and I would say in India, like you asked before, like if we don't have success here, it will be tough to have success elsewhere. And so companies like yourselves, critical that we get this right here. But then you're also a global player. So where you also are a global player, we need to get it right there as well. And I know that I have the right partner for that sitting across from me. So.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. We always love to have you in India. You and I have been connected on LinkedIn for, donkey's years.
We're LinkedIn friends.
We are the LinkedIn friends, as we call it, and meeting it for the first time. It's really great to catch up around with you face to face in person, and it's always good to put a voice, a face, and a personality to just the text that we would do on LinkedIn. How do you really find India? You're a globe traveler and a globe trotter, right? How do you really find India? How is it different from, share some personal experience that you've experienced it around here, which is different somewhere else too.
Yeah, I mean, my personal story, I never used a passport until I was 23. And I come from a family that didn't use passports and didn't speak other languages. And I went, in between consulting projects on a vacation in Argentina. Loved it, met people there in a competing consulting firm, interviewed, got a job, and moved. And it's like, what am I going to lose? Picked up Spanish along the way, lived outside the country, picked up Portuguese.
Gosh, how many languages do you speak?
I speak 3, and really.
And all 3 are very useful in US.
And it really opened my eyes that there's a really big world out there. And I moved back to the US, had a reverse culture shock, and
why was it a reverse culture shock?
Because it's kind of like you lift back the veil and you see all the wonderful things and
outside.
Like every day is an adventure. Like I'm here, what you take for granted for me is like lunch today. For you, oh yeah, I have this all the time. For me, an adventure. And so, and a beautiful adventure in that regard.
That's right.
So like that's what I like about. I've been doing international now 25 years. I used to just do one region. Now worldwide. I worked for a Tata company for almost a decade.
Yeah, so
I've been
so
there.
You're almost half Indian, bro.
Yep.
You're almost half Indian. If you work 10 years in an Indian company, you're half Indian.
Yep. So I've been to BKC. I've been to Agra. I've been to Delhi multiple times, to Gurgaon, and so it's a special place for me. And there's things that I tell my wife when I come out. It's like I'm going to load up on the Indian breakfast the first morning because it's my favorite thing of the day. Is
do you follow Bollywood? Do you follow Bollywood?
Do I follow Bollywood? Why? Is there a show I should watch?
No, some actress or who is your most favorite actress, if any?
Favorite actress, if any? I don't know if I have a favorite actress or any.
Okay.
But if there's one I should be following, then yes, or a show I should be watching on the plane home, let me know.
I'll for sure let you know on that track. I think it's fantastic to have a chat with you. And,
this has been fun.
I have been really excited to host you for the time that I needed you coming to India.
Yeah.
And we love doing that. And I look forward to welcoming you more and more in the coming year of 24. One last question before I let you go is, when do you think you will be a market leader in OTT space? Which year do you peg yourself in?
You would think...
Sorry, I put you on a spot.
Yeah, I know. It's funny is 2023 has been an interesting year. And the end of this year is quite dramatic with our announcements, Apple's announcements, numbers I see internally across multiple countries. I think we haven't even started the first inning on this, because if all phones are going to have this, and the experiences where the user is in control, we have great partners like yourselves to bring this magic forward. Like in the the late 1990s, people developing websites and building the capabilities that they can transact. then the magic starts from there. So it's almost like asking somebody back in 1998, is this the year? It's like, I think we got multiple years to go where this is going to be pretty magical. And I hope that this is
2-year journey, 1 year journey.
I would love a future in the next year or two where every Android user is receiving and transacting on a daily basis the toothbrush moment again.
Perfect. And there you go. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this, friends, for you is my friend Steven from Google, and he leads RCS globally and the biggest boss within the RCS community all over the world. I enjoyed talking to you. I hope you enjoy watching this and pick up a lot of learning and nuances out of this. Thank you once again. And
Thank you.
Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Pleasure.